This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. We begin with the ongoing impact of the coronavirus. The governor of New York says today that he is establishing a containment area in Westchester County, the center of the outbreak in the state. Houses of worship, schools, and other facilities will close for 2 weeks. On Wall Street, investors are looking for a comeback in the stock market after stocks took their biggest hit Monday since 2008. In Washington, President Trump is getting an economic package ready, and there is some good news out of China. Here's CBN's George Thomas.
The White House is set to ask Congress for a payroll tax cut and economic assistance to hourly workers to help those hurt financially by the coronavirus as new cases continue to pop up across the country.
We're also going to be talking about hourly wage earners getting help so that they can be in a position where they're not going to ever miss a paycheck.
Financial experts saying the relief could be a boost to an economy that's feeling the effects of the virus outbreak.
Risks are very high that the U.S. economy is going to go into recession, that the virus is going to do a lot of damage to economic activity.
The Dow rebounding at the open today after dropping more than 2,000 points Monday, triggering a halt on trading for the first time in 2 decades after the market plunged 7%. Markets in Asia and Europe were also up. So too were oil prices, which saw its worst loss since 1991.
You always expect a rebound after such a massive sell-off, but the uncertainties that are around the sell-off didn't disappear totally. So they still remain.
Experts advising investors to remain calm and maintain a long-term view.
The markets over time have, up until now, always recovered. It might not be next month or next quarter, but we need to keep, if it's for retirement purposes, we need to keep that long-term picture in mind.
In the U.S., coronavirus cases now surpassing 700. In Washington, the president's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, self-quarantines after possibly coming into contact with a person infected with coronavirus. Several other Republican lawmakers who met with the president also quarantining themselves out of an abundance of caution. Meanwhile, the streets of Florence practically empty this morning after the Italian government placed the entire country of some 60 million people under quarantine. Overnight, residents of the Italian capital stood in long lines stockpiling food as schools, universities, restaurants, and all social gatherings banned until April 3rd. 9,000 cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed in Italy. 463 people have died so far, the largest numbers outside of China. Israel is taking the unprecedented step of quarantining all international travels for 2 weeks upon arrival.
Here at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport, you can see the impact. Normally, there would be thousands of travelers coming and going through Israel's main international airport. Now it's nearly deserted.
In Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the virus outbreak, some patients who had the most severe cases now recovering. Beijing saying its efforts to control the virus are working, as government officials reported the lowest number of new cases since January. Chinese President Xi Jinping visiting medical workers and patients in Wuhan for the first time today, a signal perhaps that the country has finally brought the outbreak under control.
But if we can see a country have more than 80,000 cases, now start to see a decline, that is more than hope. That is evidence, of showing that this can be done.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Ministry leaders are facing a whole new set of decisions as the coronavirus continues to spread across the U.S. And joining us now is Dr. Corne Becker, Dean of the School of Divinity at Regent University. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Heather.
What are you hearing from your students, from ministry leaders about what are they having to work through at this time?
Well, there are 3 things that ministry leaders are doing at the moment. The first and probably the most important is how do you serve communion? Right. So more traditional churches, they sometimes the use of a common cup, and they've decided to stop that. Many churches also, as part of their liturgy, have the giving of the peace or the greeting that's part of the liturgy. And instead of shaking hands now, there's kind of like an elbow touch or maybe a fist pump or sometimes just a wave. The second thing that churches are doing, they're considering whether to move services online, which is kind of a radical step to take. And the third one, of course, is the encouragement of rather doing worship within the home, with the family as the unit.
So interesting. What are your thoughts on how churches can make these decisions so that they're not fear-based and yet they're not blowing caution to the wind? What are some guidelines?
I think it's a fine balance. First and foremost, we need to recognize that God is in control of this whole world. And secondly, that healing is available for Christians. And so Christian leaders should take great caution in communicating that we can trust in God and that we can put all of our faith in His ability to protect us and heal us, if in the case that indeed we pick up this virus. But secondly, I think they do need to be cautious. Churches, by their very nature, is communal. We come together in small groups, we share quite a fair bit, and so it's that fine balance, faith, but yet caution.
Right. Well, we're hearing that some church leaders, too, are getting pushback because if they say no hugging, some people are offended. If they allow hugging, others, and so are you having conversations like these where church leaders are trying to, attend to all the concerns in their community?
I spoke to two church leaders this morning that actually had that exact experience where they said simply, look, we're not going to shake hands, we're just going to wave. And people were quite offended, and somebody said to a church leader, you have no faith, but that's not true, right? It's just a practical step that church leaders must take. So again, I would just simply caution them to continue to share faith, but share the practical steps that we can do to protect one another.
Yeah. This also seems to be a real moment of gospel opportunity, and I'm wondering if you're hearing that from people who perhaps are more spiritually interested than they have in the past, and how can we take advantage right now?
It's an extraordinary opportunity. I spoke to my son earlier, actually yesterday, in which he said to me, is the world coming to an end? And again, if you watch the news, it might seem so to some folks. And again, I had the opportunity to just share with him, no, it's not really what's going on, but what an opportunity to share the faith with lots of people.
Right.
Indeed.
Well, I know a lot of people are talking, a lot of people are thinking it's a big conversation talker. So, Dr. Becker, thank you for your time.
It's a great joy.
We appreciate it. Well, Israel has taken an unprecedented step to protect against the virus, and it's requiring all international travelers arriving in the country to be quarantined for 2 weeks. As Chris Mitchell reports from Tel Aviv, the new policy is having an enormous impact on tourism and the economy.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made the announcement on social media. He said after a day of complex discussions, we reached a decision. Everyone who comes to Israel from abroad will be put on a 14-day quarantine. This is a difficult decision, but it's necessary to protect public health. Public health comes before everything else. This decision will be valid for 2 weeks. At the same time, we are making decisions to maintain the Israeli economy. Here at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport, you can see the impact. Normally, there would be thousands of travelers coming and going through Israel's main international airport. Now, it's nearly deserted.
I have already a couple of cancellations.
It's had an immediate impact on tourism.
Groups will not show up. If they have to be isolated for 2 weeks, they cannot come for a week.
Some Israeli airlines plan to stop international flights. One called it a death blow to Israeli aviation. The finance ministry estimates the requirement could cost the economy nearly $1.5 billion a month. The government said those travelers already in the country will need to leave in an orderly fashion in the coming days. These travelers just completed their tour and are headed home. Most were unaffected by the coronavirus, but this couple couldn't attend church.
They were very positive, very assuring that they loved us and cared for us, but it was a government edict that no public gatherings were allowing tourists that had been in the country less than 2 weeks, 14 days.
Perhaps the most severe case was a tour group from Alabama who were quarantined in Bethlehem when they were exposed to the coronavirus at a Bethlehem hotel.
This is part of the protocol. If I walk out of my room we don't move, we stay on our hallway. We don't leave our hallway. But even among our team members, we don't get close to each other.
They have now been able to leave, but even before, Pastor Bell was upbeat.
We're trusting God every day that He has a plan in all of this and that He's going to see us through it. And we're just trying to be faithful every day.
Others look to God, too.
We're trusting God to take care of whatever it is we face.
I'll take it one step at a time. I'm not worried. I have a mighty God. No, I'm not worried about it.
As a tour guide, Groner looks forward to the end of the coronavirus crisis.
Israel is a beautiful place, safe place to visit. Come and visit us. Once this is over, come and visit us.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv.
Please stay with us for the latest on the coronavirus as we continue to provide updates right here on the CBN News Channel and on CBNnews.com. And meanwhile, in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's request to delay the start of his corruption trial has been rejected. Netanyahu has been charged with fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in connection with a series of scandals. Netanyahu denies any wrongdoing. His lawyers had appealed for a delay, saying they needed more time to review evidence. But a district court in Jerusalem ruled it will begin as planned next week. The trial comes on the heels of another victory for Netanyahu's Likud party in Israel's third election in less than a year. Well, here at home, an important primary contest today between Democratic presidential candidates Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Voters in 6 states are headed to the polls as both candidates are hoping to squash the other. Senator Sanders currently trails former Vice President Biden in the delegate count, but the Sanders campaign is counting on a comeback after today's voting. Meanwhile, Biden is scoring some big-name endorsements from former rivals.
I am so proud to be on Joe's team because Joe is on your team. We will elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States.
The biggest state up for grabs today is Michigan, with 147 delegates on the line. For more political news and analysis, be sure to catch Faith Nation this evening. You can watch it right here on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, yesterday we told you about the decline of the church in Europe and how people there have left the faith. But today, I'll look at the other side of that story.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
For centuries, Europe was the center of Christian civilization. That's no longer the case, as most Europeans have left the faith. But there are some signs that God is bringing the harvest back to re-evangelize Europe. Dale Hurd brings us that story from Dublin and London.
This is not the dark continent any longer. This is the new dark continent. A majority of African nations today are Christian. A majority of Europeans today say they're either atheist or have no religion. But God is using believers from the mission fields of Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, just as early missionaries had prayed for.
In the early 1800s, when European missionaries were going to Africa, Asia, they spoke of a hopeful day in the future
Dr. Harvey Quiani, professor of African Christianity and theology at Liverpool Hope University in England, grew up in a Malawi village first evangelized by British missionary David Livingstone. He says what early missionaries had prayed for is something called the blessed reflex.
That there's going to be a reflex in the future when Christians from Africa, from Asia, would come back to strengthen British or European Christianity.
And today, dynamic Bible-believing immigrant churches can be found in virtually every European capital. After years of decline, church attendance in London is finally growing again. But it's not growing because of traditional churches. It's growing primarily because of African churches.
In London, on any given Sunday, over 60% of people who attend church are Black Africans going to African Pentecostal churches.
Just 14% of London's population. They now account for over half of the city's church attendance. After Ireland turned away from the Catholic Church to secularism, there is now fresh fire, thanks to Christian immigrants known as the New Irish.
The Irish came to Africa many years ago and did so much. They didn't just bring a religion, they brought better life, schools, hospitals, and all of that.
Pastor Tunde Oke oversees the Nigerian-based Redeemed Christian Church of God in Ireland, which now has more than 100 churches.
They brought the seed to Africa, and the Africans are coming back here. And for us to come back to Ireland and see Ireland in the state that it's in, it encourages us to do a whole lot more.
The harvest has also returned from Eastern Europe. The two largest churches in Ireland today are both Romanian Pentecostal. Betania Church outside of Dublin is building a new $5.5 million facility on faith. When I talked to the pastors at the construction site, they admitted this has all been a wonderful surprise.
I think nobody came here as a missionary, you're right.
But God had a plan for the Romanians who came to Ireland to work.
Our kids, our generation has the potential, and this is our main purpose as a church, to give and prepare and equip and empower and send this young generation outside of the church.
God's plan, like a big picture, we can see only the small puzzle piece, but it's God's plan and God's way. So even now we make history, but we don't know that we're making history.
Pastor Sean Malarkey of St. Mark's in Dublin says there are now church plants all over Ireland because of the immigrants.
There are churches being planted in little rural towns that could never have been reached if it wasn't for the fact that God has brought in these people. We've been so blessed by the arrival of these new Irish.
And Quiani believes this new movement in Europe will redefine what it means to be a missionary in this century.
God has a sense of humor, because now that things are getting a lot more secular, God is bringing the harvest back to people that brought Jesus to us.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, reporting from London and Dublin.
Immigrants have been evangelizing the world for centuries. Many people think that since Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland, he must have been Irish. He was actually British. After becoming a Christian bishop, he heeded the call of God to bring the Christian faith to Ireland. Patrick lived in his adopted country for 30 years, and with God's help, he converted the entire nation to Christianity. CBN Films tells the true story of St. Patrick in a new docudrama, I Am Patrick, the Patron Saint of Ireland. It hits theaters on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, and March 18th for 2 nights only. Tickets are on sale now, and you can go to iampatrick.com to see showtimes and reserve your seats. Well, after the break, how one expert says you can relieve chronic pain without medication, what changes you can make to help your body naturally.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
1 in 10 Americans deal with persistent physical pain. So people often use opioids, but they can be ineffective and addictive. Lori Johnson talked with some experts about ways to relieve chronic pain without opioids.
Talk about some of the ways that we can change our beliefs about our pain.
So one of the easiest ways is to really think about, do I start to catastrophize about my pain? This is very common. It's easy to do, where you start to think things like, I'm never going to get better. I can only go on disability. What kind of a future am I going to have? And instead, what we want you to do is grab those thoughts, start thinking about how you could replace that with something that's a little bit more positive. Maybe you can't throw the ball like you used to, but maybe you can do some other things, create a new normal with this pain, and try to focus on what you can do versus what you can't do. Changing those beliefs, replacing them with something that's more positive, more hopeful, more helpful. In the Christian faith, we believe that there always is help, there's always a way, there's always hope for what we can do, and so we want to move forward in that way. The other thing that would be good is to think about, how do my thoughts affect my emotions? And for a lot of people that are dealing with pain, depression is a part of that. And if you don't grab those thoughts and you make them more positive, and I'm not saying you're saying things that aren't true to yourself. You're not saying, I'll just pretend my pain isn't here. No, you're acknowledging that you have pain, but the more you focus on good things, it's a biblical idea. Think on things that are good, that are positive, things in your life that are working, things you have gratitude for, things that you're thankful for. The more we do that, it rewires the brain in a positive way, and it literally turns down the volume of pain. The same is true with emotions. The more we deal with our depression, the more we get treatment for that, the more we start to get lifted out of that depression, it's going to also turn down the volume of pain. So those are very important things to pay attention to.
Dr. Cribbs, it's really amazing to me how we can change the way we think. And you really recommend doing a gratitude journal, because focusing on things for which we are grateful really helps minimize pain. Who knew?
It does. And one of the things is at the root of pain, and we talk about the depression and things like that, is that there's a sense of loss of control. That you have something that happened to you and you're not recovering. And so one of the things that helps you get control is to do a gratitude journal. What this does is it helps you spend some focused time, maybe 3 to 5 minutes in the evening or in the morning, and you're actually writing out things that you think are good, that are good about your life, the things that are positive in your life. And what that does is it puts more focus on what's good, and it activates different areas of the brain. And it doesn't put as much focus on the things on the pain or things that are bothering you. So you're reinforcing more positive pathways, healthier brain pathways, and you're de-emphasizing the pain pathways in your brain, which is what we want to do. We want to rewire the brain into a more healthy direction.
And you talk also about meditation. And Linda, for people who are of the Christian faith, sometimes people are thinking, I don't want to do, the mindfulness activities and things like that. But you say that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this.
So for the Christian person, what we're told scripturally is to put on the mind of Christ and to meditate on those things that are in the Bible and to meditate on the person of Christ and the person of Jesus. So if you focus your mind onto Christ and all the good things he's done for you, that's usually praise, then you worship him for who he is. All of that changes the brain. We have lots of studies that show that prayer actually changes the brain for good. And prayer is actually one of the evidence-based treatments that turns down the volume on pain.
Great stuff. So to learn about other ways to alleviate pain without prescription pain pills, tune in to Healthy Living tonight at 9:30 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel. And we'll be back after the break.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
NASA marked the final supermoon of winter last night. Some Christians call this last full moon of winter the Lenten moon, since it always happens during the season of Lent before Easter. Lent officially began on February 26th. It is known as a time of prayer, repentance, and recommitment leading up to the celebration of Christ's resurrection on Easter. If you missed it last night, scientists say tonight is the last chance to see the current supermoon. And that is it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Have a great day.